Okay, so Konstantinos made me speak here for 1 hour and a half, apparently. I thought I'm going to speak for half an hour, so Yes, so the subject I have chosen is the affinity, the relation between philosophy and mystery. I have chosen it because I am a philosopher, whatever it means. Hopefully this will somehow become apparent what it means. And the reason for talking about mystery is the place. Yes, better with a microphone? Can we reinstall it? Exactly. Rusia, to weź to, będzie, to w takim razie na to, weź to sprzęt, ja nie chcę tego tam mieć.
Dobrze, proszę bardzo. A włączyłeś to? Nie, to jest włączone. Nie, nagrywa się spokojnie.
Hello.
O.
Good. Okay. Once again. So the subject I have chosen is the relationship between the affinity of philosophy and mystery. And I hope I will somehow make clear not only what is the relation between philosophy and mystery, but also what is the essence of both. Although that should be impossible, in fact, to give you the essence of philosophy and mystery, because mystery is something that should reveal itself. And but what I think, what I believe is that philosophy is a continuation of mystery, of this tradition that somehow was available here, but is not available anymore in the ancient form. But the form, as you know, changes constantly, yes, and somehow, perhaps, it is possible to renew it, or rather it renews itself by constantly changing the form. So what I would like, what was my impression when we came here is that it is very strange for me, as someone from Poland, to speak to you in Greece, to you here, where it all began somehow. I mean, philosophy, maybe not mystery, because mystery was all around, although some forms of it have the most famous forms, like Eleusis, yes. We all know they were here for many hundreds of years and then they disappeared, and the same with philosophy. It's very strange for someone who is not Greek to inform the Greeks about that which is their own. But that is somehow the way it works, that something originates, then moves out of the souls, goes through something external, gathers something on the way, and then returns to the origin richer. And through this richness it makes itself available, and perhaps maybe even understandable, by retranslating it. So I'm not even attempting to reconstruct the mystery as such, this particular mystery that took place here, because, as you know, some or even all of those who wrote about the mystery of Eleusis are trying to reconstruct it basing on archaeological evidence or textual evidence, which is not enough by definition. I mean, you cannot even get access to the mystery by some remains, external remains. In order to access the mystery, you would have to be allowed by the mysterious to experience it. And it is not the text, the superficial layer, that that initiates, yes? But we all know what mystery is. I mean, if you came here, I don't know why you did it, but if you came here, you have some expectations that can be satisfied or not. And those expectations are not even clear. I mean, everybody expects something, but hopefully this is not something in particular, because if you expected something in particular, I would have to satisfy exactly that, what you expect. And this is rather something unknown that you expect, and I don't know what it is. But this is how mystery works, that the unexpected has to occur. I hope you forgive me my way of speaking, which is somehow periphrastic, and but I'm trying to, and this is how I'm going to speak, trying to move around some center that as such is impossible to utter, to express in words, but by speaking around it and trying to focus on some points on the circumference of the center, which is as such absent, but present only through something that expresses it. I will try to make it present through its absence. So, some points about mystery first. Not mystery as the mysterious, but mystery as some event. Yes, because as we know, mystery is not only some secret that is unknown, but mystery as a secret makes sense only if it is about to be revealed. Otherwise, why would it be a secret? I mean, every secret makes sense only as something that tempts us and that we are longing for, yes? So, what do we know? And we don't even have to study any mystery rituals, that there is something like an initiation, yes? What an initiation is, seems to be surrounded with some darkness. You don't know what you are initiated into, yes? But the initiation has something in it, which is not only the mysterious aspect, that it is an initiation into the unknown, but it is also a beginning, yes? Some start, something that is initiated. So this is the first point that connects mystery to philosophy, because what philosophy is about is a way of making the beginning present. But it is not only a beginning of something. Right now, for example, something began, the lecture, yes? Or our meeting, or your impression of me, or my speaking has begun, and then it will end. But also, what I am trying to point our attention to, and this is the way philosophy works, yes? Is that there is this method of reflecting upon that which happens. So, for example, now I am pointing the attention toward the beginning as such. Not only the beginning of something, but the beginning as such, yes? Or every beginning. And this beginning as such is that into which the mystery initiates. And then what philosophy is the way of making the beginning present, yes? And the end, which is symmetrical. So, first, the initiation, which everyone knows that the mystery is about, yes? To initiate, the initiate. There is something that initiates, and someone who is initiated, the initiate, yes? But what philosophy is, as you know, is the way of pointing the attention towards the beginning, the initium. Yes, that which is initial. So there is another aspect, the secret, as I said. But what is a secret? It is something hidden, but not only hidden, but it is hidden in order to be revealed. So we have not only the initiation, and not only the secret that is being revealed, which might be the beginning or the initium, but also we have something that is hidden that reveals. and that which reveals is the revelation. The revelation is something that discloses itself, which was closed and opens. So there is an opening of something closed. And in a mystery, in a traditional mystery like the one that we've had here, a person that is initiated has to do something. First has to undergo some period of fasting or purification, and after this purification one has to perform some action, whatever it is. And then, as we know from various sources, or from some experiences, because the mysteries did not disappear, they are always possible if one searches for them. But that revelation that occurs during a mystery is a particular one, because it is sensual, multisensual. It is complete. It occurs to man as such in all ways in all forms of experience. But philosophy is particular because it somehow concentrates and limits the experience to one aspect only, that is to the word, to logos, to thinking. To thinking, and this has some advantage. The advantage is that it can be repeated without the particular aspect that the mystery requires. Yes, because the mystery, the traditional mystery that initiates, requires various factors, like a place, a ritual, a ceremony, a priest, yes, and a repetitive form and some material aspect, like something that starts the initiation. And philosophy is very strange because it originated from mystery, as we know. That took place here somewhere in Greece. But then it detached itself from the original mysterious aspect, and perhaps through this detachment it at some point lost the connection. Yes, because now philosophy is perceived as some, perhaps even argumentation in the West form, yes? A form of argumenting for some reason. But originally it was not only argumentation, but a way of revealing something through the word. A way of revealing and realizing something, but not only revealing and not only realizing, which is also the essence of the mystery, but also a way of transforming. A way of transforming the person who is undergoing the mystery. So also, this is the essence, I would say, of philosophy, that it is not only a way of argumenting, this is very superficial, not only a way of speaking or revealing through speech or through logos, and not only a way of manifesting in logos, but most of all, this is all just a tool for transformation, or we could also say recognition and transformation, because this cognition or recognition is connected with transformation. So in mystery, the experience was visionary, as we know, yes? And it was also beyond words. It was unspoken, unutterable. It was something that could not or cannot be spoken, not because it is forbidden, but because it is beyond words. So it is beyond words, but it is somehow possible to experience it. It is experienceable, but unutterable. And this makes somehow philosophy completely opposite to mystery, because philosophy takes place in words. So words are also forms, because mystery is also somehow in forms. It is not the experience of emptiness, as in some Buddhist meditation, formless meditation of void, yes, or of nothingness. It is a part of mystery, nothingness or emptiness, but it is not the end. And somehow philosophy is connected because it takes place in words, but through words it takes the one who is entering the, let's say, the mystery of philosophy, it takes one to the limit of the word. To the limit of the word, because normally when we speak, we have something on our minds. We point our attention to something that we are trying to speak or to express in words, to something that is non-wordly, yes? But by pointing the attention to words as such, we are able to reach that which is beyond words. And that is the point, yes? Or we could even radicalize this, because in mystery we have a visionary experience, or a sensory experience. In philosophy we have a logical, experience in words or in logos, yes? But that which expresses itself in all of those forms, in visions, whatever sensual experience, or in logical experience, or experience in words, that which expresses itself is beyond any form, but takes form in order to express itself. So, what we are trying to reach, or what is attempting to present itself through those forms, it's something that in itself is beyond any form, that we know. And also there is one more thing about the mystery that we know, that it was, or it is purifying. It's a way of self-purification, and true purification of renewal or rebirth, yes? So this purification is also available through philosophy or through logos, so through speaking, this is what I mean, through speaking. So how can one purify oneself and transform oneself and renew oneself through speech? How is it possible? Or through thought, through one's own thought, or through some thought that is given or transmitted. Yes, like now I am speaking, and ultimately this lecture would be successful if we would now somehow be able to recreate the mystery as such. If it would now take place in my speech, that would be a success. Or at least if I could initiate something, yes. Because I don't even know what is going to take place. I am trying to point our attention, or your attention, my attention, to something, yes. So this something should ideally occur somewhere here in between us, yes, maybe here. So purification, transformation, manifestation of something, but the only medium that we have now is speech. But speech is not something that it is not only a voice of my mouth, it is also something, some form that changes you, yes? Because you are listening, and something happens to you when you listen to me. There is some response. So, there was one more thing that I would like to stress. One more thing about the mysteries, that there is also an emotional or an existential response to the event or to that which takes place. This is some kind of a feeling, a radical and extreme feeling that one could name awe. Oh, you know what I mean, awe. Like awe. But awe is a kind of reverence and amazement, yes? Reverence and amazement. It is the response to something not only unexpected and unpredictable, but something and unimaginable, but to something that is beyond any expectation. And something that cannot be called or generated, or that only can appear by itself. So the biggest mystery about mysteries is the fact that it is repeatable. If it is the manifestation of something extraordinary, of something beyond any imagination, how one can activate it? one can only activate it or repeat it if one is a medium or an instrument of the mysterious. And one can be the instrument of the mysterious only if one gets somehow rid of oneself, or if one becomes a tool of the mysterious. So, I've mentioned, one more thing about revelation. So, if I would try to phrase it somehow, essentially, the revelation or the act, the event of revealing something mysterious would be something, this event would be something that would change everything. Yes? This is the mystery. It's not an event like any other, yes? That we experience it and then it gets its own proper place in the catalog of all events that took place. But one would have to imagine an event that takes place and it's something completely different than anything that took place before and that will ever again take place. That would be the mystery. Something that would change everything, and something that would be completely different than anything, than any other thing. So what would it be? And now I only have words to my disposal to make it present. You have your understanding and some maybe imagination, but I'm only speaking, so the way to make it available in speech is by pointing our attention to the words that I utter. So, something that is completely different than any other thing, what is it? It is something that is not a thing. Something that is completely different than anything is not a thing. It is not only a thing different than other things, but it is not a thing. It is the only way to express it in language is to say that it is nothing. Because it is so different than anything that it is not even a thing. So, what is this? Nothing. I mean, the only way to express it in language is to express it as nothing. Of course, I could just remain silent, but it would be too easy. Because I have, as a philosopher, my obligation is to express it in words. But how can one make present in words something that is beyond words? Or otherwise, how can one create a form that would represent something that is beyond any forms? This is the goal, ultimately, to form in our, let's say, minds, in our consciousness, to form a representation or a symbol or a metaphor of something that in itself is nothing. That is not a thing. So, something that would point beyond anything and beyond any form. So how can one create a form that points beyond the form? This is the goal, yes. And by relating to it, it would become a medium of that which is beyond any form, or it is at the same time the origin of all forms. Yes, this is what we are speaking about. The origin of all forms that in itself is beyond any form, yes. Maybe that would be enough, but I have still some time, so I will try to say some more, if you allow me. So, in our experience of the world, what we experience are some objects of experience, yes? Like things that present to us through senses. And that somehow are objects. Objects are the things that we point our attention to us that appear and then disappear and then can reappear, yes, and then can return, and we expect them to return, or not, or we hope they will not return. But the objects or the phenomena, yes, that which appears, the phenomena, yes, that which appears is something delimited, something definite, something that has a shape, which means it has a limit beyond which it is not itself. Yes, so the limits are in space and time. Yes, it starts to appear, then it appears, then it stops to appear, and then we long for it or not. And the fact that something is an object is very important, and the fact that it is something. Everything is something. I mean, it has a limit, the limitation. And the limit of a thing is the most important thing from our perspective. Because there is something, this is the wrong word, there is that which makes those things appear and makes them have a limit, yes? And what I would like to suggest is to try to look at things in such a way to see not only things or objects or phenomena, like everything around us, or things that point our attention to, like my voice at this moment, for example, or the place with the listeners and the lookers in front of me, but to see beyond that or through that, and to see something which originates this, which we don't know what it is, of course. I mean, who am I, for example, at this moment to speak this to you, yes? I mean, what is this that makes me say this? Why am I here? I don't expect an answer, but what made me come here? What made you listen to me? What is this? There's no answer for this, of course, but it is an attempt to point to that which is the origin of the form, yes, or which is the origin of the phenomenon, or which is that which makes everything have the form it has. So the thing, and in my opinion it is the essence of all philosophy, is this shift of attention, or this movement of attention from the form to the origin of form, or to the formation, to that which formulates the form, or to the formatory something, yes? I'm sorry, because I only see your faces and I don't know your thoughts, which would be helpful, because usually people talk, and when someone talks for a long time and only sees the faces with a smile from time to time, it is hard to know if what I say makes sense. But maybe if it is nonsense, it is even better. Because a nonsense would be like non-form, yes. So hopefully I will achieve the moment of nonsense. Maybe not yet. So, yes, language as the medium. What is the language? Language is a kind of a voice, or a voice that somehow makes sense. But why does it make sense? It is repeatable, and it somehow associates, yes, with an object, or a feeling, or a person, or something that we either like or dislike, yes. And those associations are connected with words that point. A voice or a sound is a form, yes, a form in time. And this form points to some other form. Like the one sensory form, a voice, points to another sensory form, which can be a feeling, which is a movement of the interior, human interior, or to an external form, which can be touchable or seeable or somehow sensible, but this is one form that points to another form. So all words are forms, somehow pointing to other forms, but as I said, my goal is to make the form that I am now using, the form of the word, to point to something which is formless. So simply the difference that I wanted to stress is that mystery uses something unutterable beyond the words to point to something that is the origin of everything. And philosophy has everything in common with mystery except the fact that it uses words. which is the biggest difference and the most important. But words are forms. Words are forms. So I have this obsession with forms. And every form is a medium, yes? Something in between, medium. A carrier, something that carries, yes? But what it carries, or this medium, the in between, is we could say a message, or something that is transmitted, yes? So, usually, normally, we point our attention to the message, or to the form. But the idea is, when I speak to you, it seems that I am the originator of the message, and you are the receiver of the message. Yes, or if we see a sign, it seems that or a signal, it seems that it is a message to us from someone who created the sign, yes? But what if we see everything as some kind of a form or a symbol that has a meaning, because it has. But what is it that makes all those things meaningful? Now, to return once again to the mystery, and not only the Eleusinian mystery, but yeah, there were various mysteries in the world, and there still are. And it has been somehow generalized that every mystery has 3 stages. And those stages are, the first one is the purifying stage. Yes, the stage when one, in order to get access to the mystery, to the mysterious, has to get rid of some baggage, some obscurities, and through this purification, which can be fasting, there are various ways, yes, through the purification, one can enter the 2 further stages. And of course, this purification can be bodily, like a diet or some other kind of ascesis, yes, self-limitation. But in philosophy, and this is interesting, it is not bodily. In philosophy, the purification is mental or cognitive, and as you know, it is a way of negation, as all purification is negation. A negation that makes place for something to appear, yes? So, the mental purification would be a way of thinking that is self-reflecting, yes? And that somehow modifies our knowledge or our mindset. And how we can purify ourselves philosophically or logically or mentally, well, as you know, by negating or by questioning, not by asking questions, but by putting into question that which we assume as unquestionable. And ultimately, as one can notice, everything is questionable. Or everything is, one would say, an assumption which is grounded, or which is irrational in the sense that it has no ratio, which is unreasonable in the sense that it has no reason. Yes? So the way of self-questioning or self-purification of the knowledge or self-knowledge or the knowledge of the world, which is all a set of assumptions, every mindset is a set of assumptions, the way of purification on the logical or mental way is by questioning everything, one by one, by looking for the reason or the base upon which our mindset is based. And if we look, because we always think there is a reason for something, but then we look for the reason, and this reason has another reason, but the ultimate reason is unreasoned. So the ultimate ratio or the ultimate ground is ungrounded. So if we go through our assumptions, we see that they are kind of an axiom, like in mathematics. Or they are merely given, but they could be something completely different. And then when one goes through such assumptions or reasons, one ultimately enters something that you could describe as a mental or logical abyss, emptiness, void. Yes, this is all based on emptiness, on something. Every ground is based on something ungrounded. So beyond, let's say, the ground is something that you stand on, yes, or something stable. And we like to feel stable. We like to feel grounded. But when we look into our assumptions, into our reasons, they are ungrounded. Ultimately, they are ungrounded. And this is very good to realize it, because this is the mental purification that I mean. When one goes through this, one sees that it is all based on nothing. It is unbased. This is ungrounded. Every ratio is irrational. Every reason is unreasonable. And there are also some other methods of purification, but this is one of the best, yeah? To question everything. And then to remain in some openness, yes? In openness to every possibility, because this way of entering this or that way of looking at the world, yes, is a way of living the openness. But then if we enter this abyss, mental abyss, one enters some kind of opening, an opening of all other possibilities that until now were impossible. And yes, there are also some other forms of purification. Another one that is very common is not only getting rid of knowledge or transgressing knowledge, yes, or negating knowledge or purifying knowledge, yes, but it is a transgression of possession, or getting free from knowledge and getting free from possession, because it is given and it is not owned. I'm not entering because it is rather famous way of releasement, because what I'm speaking of is releasement, obviously, yes. Releasement from knowledge, releasement from possession, which is existential, which is even, as we know, more existential apparently than getting rid of knowledge or assumptions or reasons. Because one always thinks one has a reason for something, for some activity. Yes, I do this because I have a reason, but this reason is unreasoned. Okay, so I do something because I have a reason, I think something because I have a reason, but also I have something. It's not only a reason, I have an object, and I'm somehow attached to it, and then by detaching, one releases. Yes, this is another way of purification. And the third way that is very interesting, I have three ways in particular that I want to mention now, because they seem to me most important. The third one is the will. And this is also something that philosophy is very interested in, the will. Yes, so the will is not only a mental focus or attention, but it is also connected to activity, yes, because we are active subjects or people that want something. I will return to it in a moment. So we not only think something or know something, and this we can question. We not only have something, and this we can question, but or put into brackets or treat this as something given but not obvious. But also we have a will, because we want something. Or it is, what is a will? Will is not only pointing attention to something, but attachment to an object that we are representing, yes? And that we are expecting, and that we are not only focusing attention to, like me now, ultimately I'm trying to focus on that which is not something, yes, or to that which is not a form. And by trying to tell you how to get rid of knowledge and possession and will, I am only trying to make possible to reach that which is not a form or which is not something. And I am trying to show how attachment to knowledge and attachment to possession and attachment to will is an obstacle towards reaching that which is not something. Because knowledge is something, it's a form, yes, and possession is something, it is a form, and will is also something. And it is a will of something. So only if we get rid of the will of something and get rid of our attachment to the possession of something and our attachment of knowing something as certain, we can make place, not only mental, because mental place would be related to knowledge, but we can make place in a, let's say, existential manner, or on the level not only of our minds, but on the level of our lives. And this is that level that is the utmost level, the ultimate level. This is the high stake that we are talking about. Yes, it is not only about knowing or imagining or speaking about something, but if we are talking about transformation, we are not only talking about the transformation of knowledge, but the transformation of lives, yes, the transformation of ourselves. And if a mystery transforms ourselves by some event that can be initiated somehow, and if philosophy is a continuation of the mystery without the eventual aspect, the aspect of the event that takes place in some place and is somehow activated by ritual, if the philosophy is a repetition of this in words, through words, and if words can somehow repeat this and achieve the same effect, then what I'm saying should be somehow equally efficient. And then it would be able to change the life. I mean, life as such, not only knowledge or assumptions. So I'm only proposing 3 releasements. But this is very radical and it is very difficult to obtain in this goal. Yes, the releasement of knowledge, detachment from knowledge, all assumptions, I mean, all. Objects and will. And one could even say that this is what it sums up to is a somehow paradoxical mode of knowing or living, because how one can get rid of a will? In order to get rid of the will, one has to, let's say, in order not to want something, one has to want not wanting. One has to will non-willing, yes? But it is still a will. So the will of non-willing, or the want of not wanting, is the same as the wanting to want is the same as not wanting to want, yes? Wanting to want is not wanting to want. Or willing not to will is not willing to will. So one enters the domain of paradox. It's like knowing the not to know, or not knowing to know, or having non-having, or not having having. So this domain of paradox, of the coincidence, the connection of opposites is something that one can somehow activate or initiate, not only mentally but also existentially, or one could maybe say livingly, yes? It means to enter the domain of paradox totally in our lives, yes? So, but this is philosophy. Philosophy is not only a way of arguing or argumenting or reasoning, but it's a way of transforming through reflecting, but a reflecting that is transformative. For example, that transforms the will. Alright, so enough with this point. Oh, and what I wanted to say, this is the first stage of purification, yes. And then, after entering the domain of paradox, or by purifying, or by releasing, or by getting rid of attachments to forms, to will, to knowledge, to possession, one enters a kind of existential void, or a kind of nothingness, a kind of lack of ground, yes? And then, in the mysteries, there are two further stages. So another one, the next stage, but we cannot repeat this stage, we can only somehow invite it, is the second stage, which is stage of union. It is the union of that which is opposite. So, if there is me, there is something in front of me, like you. Or if there is something that appears to me, so there is something like a receiver and a giver, yes? There is a giver, the gift, and the receiver of the gift. And normally we position ourselves as a pole of a relation. So the idea, the goal would be to somehow reach beyond a limited perspective of only one part of the relation, which of course is easy to say but hard to do. But it is achievable through this purification. And this union which is somehow experienced in a mystery, ideally is a state which through purification one obtains, and in which one permeates, in which one persists. But there is a third stage, which one calls revelation. And this is interesting because from this perspective that I have somehow sketched so far, if we agree that every form, every phenomenon, or everything that is given, that is presented to us, is a form of something that in itself is beyond the forms, then we can say that everything reveals itself. Yes, there is something which is not a thing, and that something which is not a thing appears out of nothing. We can even say that in itself, from our perspective, it is nothing. It is nothing that takes form. And this which appears in front of us and which relates to us and that we relate to, an object or a person or anything that is here, everywhere, whenever, now, that is a form of that which is unformed or beyond form. So, in this sense, everything is a revelation or a manifestation of that which is hidden as such and takes form as something or as everything, yes? We can somehow mentally try to represent the world as a domain of appearance, yes? Everything appears. Our consciousness is a scene, yes? A place of appearance. Not only of appearance, but a place of relation, yes? We relate to things, or to persons especially. And there is something that takes form, and every form is a form of that. And in this sense, everything is a revelation, yes? Everything is a way in which this reveals. But then, how can one expect something special, yes? If we see, and this is very interesting, because if we see everything as a revelation, which is possible, everything, can see, we all know those metaphors that the world is a spectacle, the world is a play, the world is a dream, yes, and so on and so on. So, but what does it mean ultimately? It means that there is some origin of the dream, the origin of the spectacle, the origin of the seance, yes? There might be some director, which is not us probably, because we don't control everything. We are just an actor of the play, yes, a player in the game, a dreamer in a dream, but we don't control everything. So there is something beyond our control that creates this. And which is surely more than every person here, yes? We are just moments of the entirety, actors of the whole act, yes? But we don't control everything. So there is something beyond all this, which we are all part of. And this something, which is not even a thing, we assume could somehow reveal itself. So the idea, the most interesting idea that I think I would like to point the attention to is not the fact that everything here, everywhere, is like a scene full of actors and events, and that it is all a form of the formless. It's an old metaphor, yes, that we know from various traditions. But the particular thing about revelation, because one way of looking at the world, and I think the ultimate way, and I think this is supposed to be the way of making the world a mystery. Yes, not only one event a mystery and then boredom or normality, but to transform the normality into the mystery would be the goal of that which I'm trying to say. But if we make this shift, because this way of purification that I've mentioned is a way of reaching that state of being in which everything becomes a mystery. Yes, I think this is clear. But then, if everything becomes a mystery, and every form becomes a form of that, or a revelation or a manifestation of that ultimate secret, then how would it be possible for it, the origin of everything, or the souls, to reveal itself if everything is a revelation of it? So, I think I have some more to say. How much time do we have? Do we still have a moment? Or is it still interesting what I'm saying? All right. I would like also to mention nature, because I've already talked about language and form, and about the origin of form, and the world as a scene or as a domain of manifestation, or the domain of revelation, or the purification as entrance into the paradox. But then, I would like to talk about nature. Because, as you know, all mysteries are related to nature. But usually we think of nature in a negative way. What I mean is that nature is this, but not that. For example, nature is not civilization, or not culture, or not city, but we need to exit something in order to enter nature. Yes? Or, for example, nature is plants, but not cars. Yes? Or there is something natural, but there is something non-natural. Yes? And we have some idea of what is natural and what is not. But this is a negative way of thinking of nature, by negating something that is not it. And then we can enter something natural, which is usually thought of as something original, primordial, something archaic, yes, something primitive, and by being primitive and originary, it is somehow closer to the ultimate origin, yes, and it is somehow a gateway, yes, it somehow makes possible to access the origin, I mean nature, yes, and I don't need to mention natural food, natural way of living, and all those other natural modes that are opposite to non-natural, which are supposedly worse, yes. But of course, And this is connected to the human way of being. Yes, as we know, all those opposites are based on the assumption that human is non-natural. It is something that originates from nature, but as such it is not natural, but it somehow transgresses nature, and not only transgresses, but also falls from nature. It's like the fall from the garden. The garden is the ultimate metaphor of nature, yes. So we leave the garden and then become non-natural, and then we have cities and non-natural ways of living which are worse. So nature is good, and non-natural modes are bad somehow, in the radical opposite way of looking at it. But one can look at nature in some other way. The original way of looking at nature is to see nature or physis, the Greek physis, it means the whole world as such. And even if we think in philosophy, as you know, the most philosophical concept of all that is even thought of identical with philosophy is metaphysics. So what is metaphysics, one has to ask. Philosophy is equated traditionally with metaphysics and also with theology, right? So metaphysics is an attempt to mentally, or maybe in some other way as well, the way that I'm trying to suggest now or propose, to somehow overcome or transgress physics, or rather physis. But physis is the world, so it is a way of transgressing the world, or looking into something that is non-worldly, yes, whatever it is. But the question is rather how to think of something which is more than everything. If the world is everything that it is, yes, the world is everything that is. This is what the world is, the universe, yes. The all, yes, the all, the everything. This is the world. Well, the world is all there is. And there is nothing behind or beyond. So how can one think of something that is beyond everything? But this is what we are trying to do, yes. So if we understand that the original meaning of nature or physis is world, or all that is, this is what physis or nature is, it is all that is, then we can look at the world, for example, nature, even in the world, and this is the philosophical way of looking at things through words that are also telling, which is interesting, that nature, it has in itself the birth, yes, something like natal means related to the birth, yes, nato natere is to give birth, yeah. So nature, as you know, it has two aspects. And why is the world nature? In the widest sense, it is everything that takes place, that we experience, is a kind of a birth, yes? The appearance of a phenomenon, or the experience of something, is giving birth to that. What is it that which gives birth? Which gives birth? That which gives birth is a kind of, okay, we name it origin. And we all know the painting of the origin of the world. Who is the painter? Yeah, the origin of the world. It is the womb. No, come on, it's 19th century. Courbet. Yeah, Courbet's painting. The origin of the world. And the origin of the world is the origin of the man, yes. But one could somehow think of the origin of everything as something that gives birth, not only to a man, but to every phenomenon, yes. And not only to the beginning of the world, because normally we think of the beginning, like Genesis, yes, or the beginning of the world, as something that took place at the beginning of time. Or we think of the origin of man as its birth, or his or her birth. But what I'm trying to suggest now, philosophically, is to see the beginning of the genesis of or the origin, not at some past moment, but now. That everything that takes place is somehow originated now. That the origin is ever present now, yes. It now originates everything. It is not that it started it somewhere in some past time, but there is some constantly active origin of everything. Yes, it is as though we're looking at the scene and there was something behind that activates and moves everything, yes? If somebody has designed a computer program, it is easy to look at it, yes? Because we know that there is some hardware behind and software and all this machinery that is beyond that which we perceive on the screen. Yes, and if the world is a kind of a screen, an interactive screen, yes? And it is so, we know it is so, then to look behind the screen is that what I am suggesting, that there is some origin of everything that takes place, and it is not only passive, that I see it, but it is something interactive, yes? Something that I can relate to, yes? That I am acting upon, and that acts back. There's a constant relation. Now with us, it is a relation spoken and somehow visual, yes? Because to me it is important that I see you, even though I don't see you very well. But this relation is constant, and of course there are people, objects, and so on. But that what I'm trying to constantly point your attention to is to have somehow a relation, a constant relation with the origin, and to look at everything and everyone and relate with everything and with everyone as though one relates with the origin, which originates it, and that responds through all things and people, yes? So it would be a kind of a game to see the world as a mask of the origin, which is not only a past origin, but is a constantly present origin that originates everything, and not only originates like gives birth, but also responds. That is, it is to see everything and to perceive and to act upon everything and respond to everything as though everything that we experience and relate to was a person, and the whole world is a mask of the person. A mask with many heads and hands and faces and bodies and feelings, yes. A person divided into all the things of the world, yes. And that origin would be everything, and everybody, including me, would be a part of it. It's a very strange way of looking, but this is ultimately, I think, what philosophy sums up to, yes? To not only interact with particular things and objects, but to look at it all as one combined entirety, divided, but also connected. And also to see it as something. It's very strange, because now it seems to me that I'm talking to it. Whatever it is, yes. Then what is it? And me, if you look at me, I am this talking, yes? That it is not me talking, but it is talking through me. It seems like a paranoia, probably. But it is, what I'm suggesting is a way of entering the paranoia. Exactly, this is what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that it is to become paranoid. Exactly. Exactly.
Dlatego, że
Karina wants to say something.
Ciebie nie ma tam, tylko ty jesteś tu.
Exactly. So the idea is to become paranoid and to see myself not only as me, but as something that is acting through me, and to become let's say a tool. Or it's not me speaking now, okay? And it's not very funny. Yes. And it is ultimately it sums up to this, that it is not me talking to you, but it is this talking to itself. Of course. And it's not the first, I'm not the first one to notice this. Every philosopher radical enough ends up with this idea, as you know, if you've read enough. or listened enough of philosophy. And this is the way of entering the mystery. This is the paradox that it is me and not me. Those are all banal statements, but if one tries to act them out in one's living, then it stops being banal and becomes somehow amazing or transformative. And now, how is it that, if it is so, as I'm suggesting, that I am not me but this, and you are not you but you are a face of this, and I am a face of this, and itself talking to itself and acting with itself, yes? Then how is it that I am even, that like by default we don't know it, or by default, yes, by let's say at the beginning we don't even accept it. Why is it so? Because we are detached. We are separated. The default way of living, the default mode of existence is detachment. Detachment from the entirety, detachment from the wholeness, yes? And philosophy as a kind of a transformation of living, which in my opinion it always was. And if it stopped being, then if it lost its original meaning, then it should regain it. And if we assume that this is what it is, and if one reads enough of any philosopher, then one discovers, yes, that it is about it. So believe me, or at least try to. Then the question is, why is it so that at the beginning we are detached? But we are. We are detached, and we have the possibility, which is only a possibility, of, let's say, a reconnection, yes? But a reconnection, what it means is just a different way of looking, but it's not only looking, visual looking, but a different way of perceiving, of treating the reality, and especially the relations to everything that is beyond us, as a part of the same. And this is why, in my opinion, philosophy has always dealt with radical opposites. For example, the most radical opposite is the opposition of oneness and multiplicity, yes, of one and many, yes, or of unity and division. But the idea is not to speculate about it or to analyze what is the difference, but to act it out in one's life, yes? This is the ultimate stake. And another important opposition that philosophy takes into account and tries to overcome, because ultimately those oppositions are always parts of something that is connected as such, yes? So another important opposition is the opposition, not only of one and many, but of identity and difference. And this seems to be another essential philosophical opposition. Identity and difference, yes? So I would say, maybe that would be almost at the end of what I would like to say. Identity and difference, if one thinks about it, if one looks at the world as the scene of the same differentiated into many, yes, this is obvious. The world is a domain of the multitude, yes? There are many things, objects, people, yes? There are many metaphors for this, Babel and so on. Yeah? So, this differentiation is the condition of a relation, obviously, yes? Because in order to relate to something, this has to be something else. But also in order to be able to relate to it, there has to be something that connects, otherwise it would not be possible to relate, because there has to be some basis for relating, yes? Otherwise it would not be possible to relate. So one can analyze it in many ways, but the thing is, the ultimate thing that one has to realize is that it is, as I've mentioned, the same, differentiated, the unity multiplied, and then reconnecting itself to itself through relations, through a network of relations. So we can see, and of course the ultimate multiplication and ultimate multitude is manifested as the multiplicity of man, I mean humans. And another interesting aspect of this, as we know, is the division, the sexual difference, yes? And therefore, we know from various traditions, including the mystery traditions, that the goal of the mystery is to reunite. And this can be done conceptually, mentally, by changing the attitude, but through acting out. So, the philosophical way of looking at the relation of unity and multiplicity, or identity and difference, would be to see the difference as the condition of possibility of reunification. Yes, so it would be also the way of looking at the difference, and we could even say war, quarrel, evil, or everything that is negative, which we apparently and by default reject. But the way to look at it after the shift that I'm suggesting would be to see all difference and all negativity as the condition of possibility of reunification. Yes, because mere unity would be nothingness. Pure unity would be nothingness, or nothing at all. In order for anything to exist, for anything, any particularity to exist, there has to be a difference, there has to be a limit, yes? In order for something to be something, there has to be something that it is not. So in order for you to be you, there has to be something which is not you. Like me, or he or she, yes? For something to be an object, there has to be something which is not it. Like a chair or a microphone has a limit. And what I'm speaking also has a limit, and a beginning and an end, yes? And the person also has a limit, not only temporal, but spatial, yes? And then, ultimately, this attitude that I'm suggesting is an attitude of appreciating everything. And somehow, I'm sorry to enter some kind of banality, but to appreciate even the negativity, because the negativity is a part of the entirety. And another aspect of this purification, or entering the paradox, or transgressing the opposites, would be also a very famous and perhaps obvious but difficult to achieve way of being, which is the way of non-judgment. And the non-judging is not like in other words, not imposing difference upon that which appears to us. Yes? Because judging, it seems that judging is somehow reasonable, but it is not. I mean, judging is kind of imposing difference. Yes? Imposing negation. This is like good and bad, or this is desirable, this is not. But from a certain perspective, which I'm suggesting, is it is possible to be grateful for anything, or for everything, somehow. Or to treat, Karina knows this, to treat everything as a kind of a gift, I mean as some kind of experience. And it is not only observing, but trying this, you all know this from certain sources, obviously, because this is a very famous way of meditation. Yeah? But from a philosophical point of view, this is connected to looking at everything as a unity that is differentiated. So this unity that is differentiated, even in a differentiated way, is still entire, yes? And we can divide it by judging or by negating or by rejecting, but it is still complete as such, even if we ourselves position us in an attitude that rejects a part of everything, yes? But by rejecting a part, we, let's say, particularize ourselves. And what I'm trying to suggest is that non-judging is not only somehow releasing ourselves, but non-judging is a way of looking at the world as a complete entirety, accepting it all, yes? And by this, looking at the entirety, yes, or accepting the entirety. And through this, overcoming the particularity. And putting oneself in a position that is non-particular. And this is ultimately the stake. So, and that would be the goal of the mystery, yes? The overcoming of particularity. And I think I wanted to say something more. Let me see, because I have some note.
Can I have something?
Sorry?
If we see everything as ultimately as a unity,
Yeah.
which means a total acceptance of what's around us,
Yes.
doesn't that negate difference, therefore death? Ultimately,
Death.
that non-continuation of difference, which means no progress, which means no evolution, etc., etc.
No what? No what? Sorry? I lost your word. The last one.
Evolution.
Evolution.
Yes.
But I don't mean negating. As you've heard, what I've been trying to say is not to see unity of everything, because pure unity would be nothing.
Right.
Of course. But what I was trying to show was to see unity as something that differentiates itself, and every particular form is a part of the entirety, and to see it all as a connected and system, let's say, yes? And to see somehow every particular part of the system as a part of the entire unity, yes? So it is not about negating, but as seeing negation as a part of the totality, or as seeing the difference as a part of, or the aspect of identity, and also the other way. But as I said, this is a way of paradoxical thinking, or as you know, in philosophy it is called dialectical thinking, or dialectic, not only thinking, dialectical attitude. Dialectical, what does it mean? Dialectical is, it is a way of negating the negation. Yes. The negation negated is something non-negative, or one could say positive, but it is still negation that is self-negated. This is the essence of the dialectics.
It provides for continuing.
Exactly, this is the movement or evolution. Yes. So in all traditions, in all mystical traditions and philosophical and religious, the origin, the absolute origin, which in itself is nothing, is perceived as something that negates itself in order for something in particular to take place, yes? The absolute nothingness or fullness, which is empty as such, has to negate itself. How this self-negation occurs is a mystery and has to be, yes? How something absolute can negate itself. But a self-negation of fullness or of nothingness, what does it mean absolute? Absolute means non-relative. Non-relative means something that cannot relate to anything because it is everything, yes? But for any relation to be possible, or for any relativity, this is what Karina mentioned today, relativity, remember. In order for relativity to be so possible, there has to be a relation. In order for a relation, there needs to be something to relate to. If something is absolute, non-relative, it means there is nothing beyond it, nothing apart, and nothing inside it. It's absolute, which means it is non-relative, but it has to relativize. It has to make itself relative, so it has to negate itself in order for something to appear beyond itself. But of course we know that it will be still the same, because that beyond is still it. So of course in traditional concept it is God that creates the world, yes, in traditional concept. But in Kabbalah this is, I don't want to enter into it. I didn't want to quote anything, sorry. So, but in philosophy, Hegel, you know, says that this negation of the negation is not only dialectics as a movement of the world, but it is the beginning that is self-negating, the absolute beginning, which is absolute everything and nothing, has to negate itself in order for something in particular to take place. But it's not only abstract something, but then this abstraction becomes particular in order to something to take form, and this form, the highest form of any particularity, is a human. Why? Because it is most responsive. It is not only embodied, but it is out of anything in this world, it is most responsive. You as something, as a, let's say, being in this domain of experience that somehow acts out and relates to things, you can relate to everything. And everything somehow responds. But the thing that is most responsive and most reactive, most sensitive, and most similar to us and most different is another human, yes. So out of all forms, the human form is the highest form. So this negation is not some abstract negation, but is something that ultimately is human. Yes? I mean, maybe this is too abstract, but what I'm trying to say is that we are not in philosophy talking about abstract concepts, but it is a way of understanding and transforming existence. So maybe now we became too abstract, because what I wanted to say is only to give a method, or to say that through words it is possible to react the mystery, or to somehow enter that which would somehow change everything. But it is not possible to change everything just by speaking, of course. But by speaking, one can, let's say, plant a seed. Plant a seed, then would grow. Because every word that I say, and every word that you answer, either aloud or in silence, every response that you make is somehow there. It remains and grows. So, like a mystery, one can enter and experience a mystery, and then one can experience some amazement. Wow, a beautiful vision or something. But a vision as such is nothing interesting. A vision only has a value if it changes everything.
4 minuty.
Yes, we are finishing. So, what I wanted to say is that if a mystery is something that changes everything, it has to be an extraordinary event. And if philosophy is a kind of mystery that takes place in logos, this word, this speech, has to transform everything. And in order for it to be able to transform everything, it has to purify. And then, through this purification, which is not taking place right now as such, but it is a kind of a task or a possibility that one can actualize. But by actualizing it, one can transform oneself. And through transforming, one can see the world completely different, not as it was before. And in this sense, philosophy can be an initiation, because it can be a beginning of something completely different. But it is only a possibility. I mean, it is ultimately up to everyone, if it is so or not. If it is this beginning, and if it is a mystery, or if it is not. So my hope would only be that it is indeed a mystery, and this is a beginning, and that it is not necessary for any other mystery to occur, that the world as such is a mystery, or the world as such is a revelation that is not only taking place at one point, one place, one period of time, but it is a constant mystery taking place, and a constant revelation, a constant manifestation, revealing of something. It is only this. Only a way of looking and living to see everything and experience everything as a mystery. And that would mean that it is possible to somehow shift and jump into the abyss of the mystery and to see everything, that it always was a mystery. But we just haven't noticed. Thank you.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
How about the essence of resistance? The idea of resistance, evolution, or a change. Don't you think it's very important that if we did not have resistance to change, it would almost be non-existent?
Resistance
There
to
has
change.
to be resistance in order to differentiate.
Like a negation. It is
You
also
have to have something, for example,
like a negation, yes.
a block of marble is a block of marble. Like a chip to something, the marble resists.
Πότε θα το παπάσει και να βάλω κατευθείαν να μείνει τα...
Co to jest resistance?
Opór.
Projector που δόθηκαν και αυτά.
Of course, but what you...
In other words, if it was one
Strach, czyli negacja.
Opór. Yes, but it is like on the most basic layer. For example, when I touch an object, it has to resist my touch, or otherwise there would be no object. It is a necessity. But this is a way of sensory negativity, yes?
it's the only way that
It's the opposite, that which is opposite, yes.
it's the only